In the last video, we finished off the header section. And if we take a look at the finished version, we're now going to move down to this welcome section we see here. This will give us a chance to work with columns for laying out content into equal parts, or 3 parts in our case. And if we shrink down the browser, we see this section, along with all the other sections, is fully responsive, and then we'll stack in a smaller screen view. In the index.html, this content will go just below the header, which we finished. So let's go and do this now. We'll locate the closing header tag. The first thing to do is to create a div, and this is going to have a class of container fluid, just like the header section did too. Then also a class of text center to add our text positioning, and then we're going to add some padding, and we're going to use this with py-5. Now this may look a little bit confusing, so let's go over to the Bootstrap documentation. In the sidebar, if we go to utilities and then down to spacing, this explains how we can use margin and padding as our class names. We need to build these up with a P for padding or an M for margin. So in our case, we've used py5, so P for padding. And then we can use the top, bottom, left and right values, or we can set the X and Y to apply them to top and bottom or left and right, followed by a size of 0 through to 5. So in our case, the py is setting the padding value on the top and bottom. And you can also have a play around with these different values too to suit your project. The next thing we want to do is to create a row, which is going to be a wrapper for our text and also this icon in the middle. So inside of our container, let's add a second div with the class of row. Then nested inside of here, we can add our columns. Bootstrap uses a 12 column grid. So if we set a div to be 6 columns wide, it will take up half the width of the screen. So at the moment, each one of these are 4 columns. So 4, 4, and 4. We can also set our welcome to Tranquil Spa text to be the size of 6 columns, and then offset it by a value of 3, which will push this into the middle, leaving 3 columns on the left, and then 3 columns on the right. So inside of our row, let's add the div. The class to set our columns is going to be col-md-6, meaning that this will be the width of 6 columns on medium devices and above, or the full width on smaller devices. As we mentioned before, we can also offset this on medium devices by 3 columns. If we now save and then reload, we don't see anything because we've not yet added any content. So if we add our level 3 heading inside here with the text of welcome to Tranquil Spa, we should now be able to save and then see something on the screen. So the level 3 heading takes up 6 columns or half of the 12 column grid. The remaining 6 columns has been split on either side because we offset this by a value of 3. Next up, we need to add our icon or our image just below. The source, this is in the images folder, and the image which is being provided for this is divider purple, the alt text of divider 2, and then a class of w25. Again, if we go back over to the Bootstrap utilities, we can take a look at the sizing. W25 will set the width to be 25%. W50 will set the width to be 50%, and so on. So save this, and then we can check this out in our project. Reload. Okay, good. The next stage is to go down and add these images. These images are also going to have a wrapper, which is going to be a div. This is going to be a separate row too, because we're on a new line. And then inside of this row, we're going to create 3 new divs, each one with a width of 4 columns. So just after this row here, but still within our container. And that's just a spelling mistake there. Okay, so just after this div here, we're going to make some space and then add a new row. So the div with the class of row. We're also going to add some additional classes to this div. We're also going to add some margin to the top, add some spacing, which is a value of 4. We're going to set the display type to be flex using dflex, and then add some flexbox spacing with justify content around. Inside of here, we can take a better look at how columns work. We can then add a class of col sm4, meaning that on small screens and above, this div will have the width of 4 columns. If we paste this in 2 more times, let's say A, B, and C. Check this out in the browser. Each of these 3 divs will take up an equal space. So instead of A, B, and C, we want to add an image and then some text just below. So let's just remove these 2 divs for now. Instead of A, we can add a image, the image source. It's going to be the images folder, and then the makeup.jpg, makeup image as the alt. Then we can add some Bootstrap classes into here. I'm going to construct this as a Bootstrap card. We'll go over to the documentation. We can see what a card will look like. If we go to the components, then down to a card. There's lots of different variations we can use, but I'm going to use a very simple one to get a layout very similar to this. We're going to use the card on the image of card image top, card body for the bottom section, and then card text for the actual content, which will give us some nice layout and styling. So first of all, in the image, we can add the class of card img top, then a div for the actual content just below. This div will have a class of card body. Then nested inside our text, so hair and makeup. And instead of the ampersand, I'm going to use a HTML entity of AMP. And this text needs a class of card text. Okay, so save this and see how this is looking. We only have 1 div at the minute, so this is centered in the middle. But this will get pushed to the side once we add our second and third div. If we take a look at the finished version, we can see on the image it has these rounded corners. And this is another Bootstrap utility class which has been provided. We can add this as a class on the image after card image top. This is rounded circle. And this is all we need to add to now transform our image. So rather than typing out all these classes again, I'm going to copy this div and then paste this in 2 more times. So the middle one, if we look at the final project, this one is going to be the candles image and then the text of spa facilities. So rather than makeup, this one is candles.jpg, the alt text of candles image, and then spa facilities. All the rest of the classes will stay the same. The third one is going to be for the retreat. So retreat.jpg. The makeup image is now retreat image. And then the text at the end of take a tour. Okay, let's see how this is looking back in the browser. Refresh, there's our 3 images, all good. Okay, so there's now just 1 or 2 more things we need to do just to finish this off. If we take a look at the finished version, we can see that the images are a little bit smaller and the text is a bit bigger. So this is because if we look at our version, we've used up all of the available 12 columns. So 4, 4, and 4. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller by changing all 3 of these to be a value of 3. Give this a save. Refresh. And now we've got a little bit more spacing around the images. These are all still centered because we've justified the content around, meaning we've got equal space on all sides. Next up, we can make the text at the bottom a little bit bigger by overriding the Bootstrap styles. So the Bootstrap class of card text has been applied to the text. So let's go to our custom CSS. Just above the media query, we can add the text of welcome section. And the one and only style we need to add is card text. And we need to set this to be a font size of 1.2 rems. Open up Chrome, reload, and now that looks a lot better and more like the final version. That's us now finished with the welcome section and taking a look at how we can use columns, along with using different Bootstrap utilities. So thank you, and I'll see you next time.